Okay, well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name's Roger Luxton from SDL. I'm actually standing in for my colleague Rusty Warner, so if anybody was expecting Rusty to do the session, then I'm afraid you're stuck with me this afternoon, but we're covering exactly the same topic during the course of the session. I'm going to talk for about 25, 26 minutes, something of that order. And then there'll be a small chance for some questions at the end. So please feel free to ask any questions, or I'll also be over on the SDL stand at the end of the session, which is just directly across the corridor there. So the session that I'm going to talk about is how we can make omni-channel a reality. So as consumers, we're all increasingly using lots of different channels to both gain information, gather information, or actually go through and purchase. And what we mean by omni-channel is about utilising all those different channels, reflecting that people want to buy through different channels, really embracing the fact that they want to make purchases and engage with us through different channels as an organisation. And by successfully doing that, we can really create the right customer experience for them. Now, the whole presentation, I'm going to be weaving in a case study that we've done for an organisation who uses our technology, our campaign management and analytics technology, down in Australasia, an organisation called Specialty Fashion. So I'll be weaving in how they've used our technology, what some of the challenges were that they faced and how they adopt it, and then particularly some of the results that they've achieved through using our technology. So, as I said, it's all about customers wanting to use lots of channels simultaneously, and us as marketeers making sure that whatever channel people choose to use, the customer experience is the same as the consumer would expect. So we're not talking to the consumer in silos, we're talking to them across multiple channels at the same time. It just reflects how us as consumers are starting to engage with brands. Now, there's lots of evidence around the sort of success of people adopting omni-channel approaches. I've just thrown up one example up on the screen here, which are the sort of results that Specialty Fashion have achieved. So they've found that one of their members, who buys both online and in their store, has something like 2.6 times more value to them than somebody who just shops in store. I've just seen a recent example as well from the likes of John Lewis, obviously a bit more UK-centric. Their figure is something like 3.5% that they quote in their latest annual report. So there's definitely merit in adopting a sort of omni-channel approach and making sure that you're delivering the right customer experience for each individual. So what I'm going to go through is, first of all, introduce you to Specialty Fashion, what they're about, what they do, some of their challenges. Then I'm going to just summarise some of the reasons why we believe it's important for people to adopt a multi-channel approach to their marketing or their retailing. And then we're going to go through some of the building blocks that organisations need to put in place so that they can deliver that omni-channel marketing. And then I'll close with some specific results that Specialty Fashion have achieved in here, and then just close with some final thoughts. So, Specialty Fashion, you might ask, well, why you stood here talking about that? Well, it is very much because they are an Australasian brand, very heavily presenced across Australia. They've got something like 800 plus stores in Australia. They've also got stores in New Zealand as well. And they've been using our technology for about 18 months now. They're one of the largest organisations in terms of women's apparel. In fact, they are the largest down there. They claim to sell a garment every single second. They've very much aimed not at myself, but at women. It's women's apparel. They've got a number of different brands that they sell to. And their database accounts for something like 65% of the female population. So they're a very large, very significant brand. And they've done very well to build that scale, having only been started 20 years ago with one brand, one store. In terms of their customer base, as you can see, sort of 7 million plus customers, so they've got some significant scale, certainly a big business down in Australia, and they've grown very much in the traditional way that most retailers do by adding brands to their mix. Obviously Australia, there's a limited market, so if you want to be on the high street, you soon run out of space if you're all adopting and trading under the same brand. So they've expanded out into different brands. They use all the traditional channels that you'd expect, online, a variety of websites, social media as well in the mix, and they do a combination of email and a lot of SMS work. I think what's quite interesting from thinking about them as a brand, which is slightly different to some other organisations we deal with, they do make use of their customer service call data quite heavily in the activity that they do. So they do sort of fully embrace the sort of back-end operational side of their business and reflect that that's a potential marketing opportunity or a risk if they're upsetting some of their higher value customers, for instance. In terms of the brands, as I say, variety of brands. Probably not too crude a thing to say they're aimed at all shapes, all sizes, all ages. Probably in terms of female apparel. So themselves as a business, as I say, just over 18 months ago, they were struggling slightly as a business. They'd had all their existing systems in place. They'd obviously been quite successful as a business to grow, but what they were finding, particularly as they added new brands. New channels were becoming increasingly important. For instance, in 2008, they added their online presence. They were finding it increasingly difficult to send out the right communications to individuals, and particularly to do that across multiple channels. I think a great quote from their marketing guys down there, it was very much a spray and pray approach to communication. They got to a stage where actually they were struggling to get things out the door. So they were quite keen just to send something without doing some nice targeting, nice segmentation of what way were they sending. So they knew they needed to change. And then, as I say, just 18 months ago, they approached us down in Australia. And we put in place our technology, our campaign management and analytics technology for them. They started to really drive forward using that technology, and they were recognised recently with the Retail Touchpoints Award for the work they were doing and the results that they were achieving in the sort of cross-channel analytics category. So over on the right-hand side in the middle here, you can see their Chief Financial Officer quite happily picking up their prize for that award. And I think it's sort of quite interesting that their Chief Financial Officer has been heavily involved in the purchasing decision of the technology, the solution, and understanding the results, because she obviously wants to understand what it's doing for them as a business and what it's driving the bottom line. So that's a little bit about these guys. I'm now going to talk a little bit about why people need to do this from a customer and then from a marketing perspective. So at SDL, we commissioned our own research recently to understand shopper behaviour, and we did that in various locations around the world. And what was coming out quite strongly is this increasing use of the term sort of showrooming, where lots of people, they visit a store, they look at a store, see what items are available, and then they go home and they buy it online. It's a very common occurrence. Interestingly, specialty fashion, they embrace that whole concept. They recognise people do that. They're comfortable with that. They're happy if people are doing it. They just need to recognise it. We also found that people, even when they're in store, they're also on their mobile devices checking prices, both of that organisation, but also competitors. So, probably we're all doing the same as shoppers now increasingly, particularly higher ticket items. We're probably all doing that. If we also think about what us as consumers probably say, I know whenever I deal with a brand or have some experience with a brand over a certain time, I'll start thinking about how that brand has served me. Is it good? Is it poor? Could they improve? And some of the things that I hear myself saying is, why don't people just listen to what I say and do? I've got one organisation, as it happens, a fashion retailer, who every week sends me an email for shoes. every week the top article on that email is for female shoes. Now, I've never ever clicked anything about female shoes. I'm not likely to. I think my feet are a bit the wrong size for female shoes. But every week I still get the email, female shoes at the top, male shoes somewhere at the bottom of their email. So even though I've clicked on other points on that email to sort of make a point, they're not reflecting what I've done. They're not listening to me as an individual. There's also lots of evidence that lots of organisations, the more channels that you use to communicate with them, they don't seem to be joined up. I'm just trying to buy some travel insurance for my daughter at the moment. I received a leaflet in a financial services outlet the other day for one organisation which quoted one price. I went on their website, exactly the same cover, got a completely different price. I then rang up to their call centre and got a third price. I'm confused as a consumer. It doesn't seem like I'm getting a great experience. My view of that brand has gone down. And also, I think quite often it's quite surprising to me how, if I look at my inbox just as one example, how often some of the organisations I'd actually think of as ones that I'm loyal to and I use quite extensively, how little some of them communicate with me compared to their competitors. They almost take me for granted a little bit. And I wonder if that's because they don't feel they need to, or maybe they're struggling to get communications out of the door to me. So there's obviously another side of the fence. If we think about a marketing department, and I go and speak to a lot of marketing departments and a lot of individuals in marketing departments and hear lots of their sort of pain points. If we talk about omni-channel marketing or multi-channel marketing or campaign management, and some of the things that they'll say to me is that they struggle with is it's still that perennial problem is having all the data in one place. Particularly lots of different channel data is all somewhere else, often with third parties, and people can't get their hands on it. There's also still this difficulty sometimes of getting customer level accounts. So if I want to make a selection for whatever communication I want to send out, often people still struggle with that basics. They need to go through an internal team or an external team and they can't get what they need fast enough. I think there's also a bit of a skills gap when we speak to people about understanding the right sort of analytical questions that people should be asking. So that often comes up. A little bit of nervousness maybe about how to ask the right sort of questions maybe of a customer database. And there's sort of some productivity questions around, it's hard work to get a campaign out the door. It's surprising, having sort of been in this industry quite a long time, that it still seems quite difficult to get some communications out. And while we might make advances maybe in one channel, certain other channels, almost it's sort of back to square one and relying on third parties or internal teams who maybe can't quite as responsive as marketing want. So, number of challenges that sort of we hear from marketing teams quite regularly. So what I'm now going to talk about is just some of the building blocks that we think people need to put in place, really to sort of tackle this idea of putting in place an omni-channel platform. So I think it breaks down really into sort of three essential things. So it's about having all your channel data in one place. It's about using that data in a smart, intelligent way where you focus on the customer in any analysis you do. And then it's being able to take those results and drive out fast marketing execution. So those, I think, are the three sort of building blocks. So what we're going to do is talk you through this and then weave in how Specialty Fashion have done exactly that, because that's what those guys have in place now. So if we think about all the different channels, back a few years ago, this was all so much easier. There were only a few channels in place that you could communicate with customers over, or that customers could buy from you. But we've got lots of social, we've got lots of web activity, we've got the various digital channels, we've got traditional channels, still call centres, still direct mail. We've got various commerce systems, maybe an EPOS system in a store. We've got mobile commerce, we've got e-commerce systems as well. We've got various other pockets of data, such as loyalty club data or survey data. So all this massive data, which is being gathered through interactions or through purchase behaviour with customers. So all that sort of touch point information Smart organisations, we feel, need to pull that somewhere into a central customer database so people can have a complete view of that customer base and really understand how customers are interacting, not just in terms of their purchases, but also which channels they use, which channels they seem receptive to, which channels they never respond to, as well as additional information we can pick up about maybe their habits and what products they're interested in. If we think back to that example about that shoe retailer who keeps sending me emails, well, if I keep clicking on male shoes, then why don't they recognise that and reflect that? So specialty fashion do exactly that. They pull all that data through various channels together, and they have a view when they look at their customer base in their loyalty and analysis team who really drive this communication. They have data where on the left-hand side, they've got their main customer data, they've got all their purchase information. That's obviously going to be key and very important to any retailer, understanding who's buying and through which channel. But over on the right-hand side, you'll just see some of the examples of the other engagement type data that they will pull through. So they'll pull in information on web behavior, so what people are viewing, what people are doing online, as well as how they interact via email and social channels. So what they're able to do is take this data, it all links up directly to the customer, so they're able to understand for every single customer what value they are and how they engage across all the different channels, and which ones they seem to prefer, and which combinations of channels are important to each individual. So, you know, as they sort of quote, and I should mention at the end of the session, I've got a link to the actual case study that you're able to grab down from our website. So they draw upon their store information, e-commerce, m-commerce, direct marketing and social media across all their brands. And in digital, they're able to track every hover and every click associated with a member, so they can really understand what people are interested in as an organisation. So that's their sort of first building block, but data on its own doesn't mean anything. You know, it's not very exciting for anyone. We need to turn it into something understandable, and that's where we believe intelligent customer-focused analysis comes in. So we've got that data available, and then we understand that and look at how we can slice and dice and analyse that data in a sensible way. Now, one of the things, as I mentioned earlier, people often struggle with is where to start with analysis. You know, it's all very well having lots of data in place, but I think there's quite a big skills gap between understanding, you know, what data you've got and actually what questions you should be asking of that data. So one of the sort of recommended starting points, and it's certainly one Specialty Fashion took, is to think about customer journeys. Ultimately, we want to move people through a journey with us as a brand. So if we look at any database that we might see, you'll generally have some prospects on there. Certainly in the retail space, you'll have a huge slug of people who've only ever purchased once from you as a brand. But this is common across lots of industries. You know, once people have started to spend a little bit more, then you'll also have people who are increasing or decreasing their spend. You'll have people who are lapsed, and you'll have your best customers over on the right. So you'll have a number of sort of people that are available. Ultimately, you want to move people from being prospects over to being your best customers and move them on a journey. So that's often the starting point for our analysis. The sort of words Specialty Fashion use, they talk very strongly about acquisition, engagement, anti-churn and reactivation as important principles for them in their analysis. But what we can do as marketeers, if we're thinking about their customer journey, then I firmly believe it's about asking lots of questions. So are we acquiring the right people? Do we have an issue around people who've only purchased once? What influences change on who's increasing, decreasing or lapsing? You know, how important are our best customers? Does 95% of our revenue come from the top 5% of customers, or have we got a more balanced audience? You know, who's at risk amongst those best customers? Who are we worried about losing? And amongst the people who've lapsed, are any in there really worth reactivating? Who should we focus our efforts on? And then there's other detailed sort of questions about the channels, frequency of buying, and product combinations that we think think should ask. But the customer journey is often a good starting point for that initial analysis. So one of the interesting things about lots of organizations is thinking about who should do this activity. So Specialty Fashion had quite a debate about whether they should build their own team in-house. They only had sort of limited analysis resource and marketing team, or whether they should get somebody else to do it outside the business. In the end, they decided to build their own team. They made a couple of recruitments because they wanted to keep that customer intelligence in-house, and they thought they were of a scale which warranted that investment. But equally, they could have gone the other way. So they took our technology, started to build their own team. One of the things we do as a business to help people, particularly recognizing that there is this skills gap, is us alongside other vendors have things like best practice guides available that you can grab off the website. But we've also introduced specific packages for sectors. Vertical is one of them, where people, once they load their data into our tool, they can have a series of dashboards, pieces of analysis and campaigns which run directly off that data that they load in, which are off the shelf and included as part of our implementation. So we've got those sort of best practice guides. There's a number available. I'll give you the link at the end of the session. If you want to grab, if you're interested, please feel free to go and grab them. You don't need to give too much information away to go and grab them. Comments back from Specialty Fashion. So their platform definitely has a massive impact on increasing analyst efficiency, more than threefold, and it's at the core of all their decision making. They have a weekly meeting, they get on the tool, they analyse, they understand what works, what doesn't, and they plan out their strategy using the tool directly during that meeting. So that's all very well to go through, do that customer intelligence, but we want to go through and execute activities now. And that's where campaign management comes into play. So they plug our campaign management system onto that application so they can send out the results directly from that intelligence they do, send out relevant campaigns. If we think of campaigns, it's all about the right message, the right product at the right time. This is just an example. It's not Specialty Fashion. It's my little mocked up campaigns where, depending on what somebody's told us, their preferences, so do they like dresses or do they like shoes? Do they respond to offers around sale, or do they tend to just like us to give sensible advice? Depending which camp we fall into, we should reflect that in any communication we send to someone. Now, Specialty Fashion, because they've got that wealth of data, one of the early campaigns they ran using our technology in something like week 4 or week 5 of the new system was taking a campaign with a whole set of different behavioural and characteristic information on their individuals, segmenting it so everybody got a very different message depending on what products they bought, how near to the store they were, how often they opened, how often they clicked. And that's delivered some stonkingly good results where they've measured against control, something along the lines of 60% uplift. Increasingly now, them and many organisations are also looking to automate. So tactical activity is great, it's useful for them, but ultimately they want to drive out automated programs. So the guys here are putting in place reactivation programs, programs to welcome on board new customers. And in terms of just being able to produce fast ad hoc material, they've now been able to reduce the time from over 24 hours to get a campaign out the door to even their most complex ones only take 2 hours. Most of them take less than an hour to drive out the door. So significant uplifts. So in terms of the results that these guys have experienced, they delivered and implemented our system alongside us implementing it for them in 3 months. So when they made the decision, 3 months later, they were driving campaigns out of the system. And that was through creating the single customer view, having that fast analytics platform, and having a platform where they were able to drive out fast communication. And that's what they won an award for. And in terms of their awards and their sort of success, this is really what they've been able to achieve. So stonkingly good return on investment, something like 2,200% return on investment on the last 200 campaigns they've run, and significant uplifts against industry standards. So, by all measures, conversion, open rates, click-throughs, and in terms of their value. So they've really been able to deliver lots of results, and they've been recognised with the Retail Touchpoints Award. So just in terms of final thoughts, I've talked a lot about specialty fashion here. This is just a quote from a US-based retailer, Saks. They have a similar experience. If people want to purchase anywhere they want a seamless experience, they're finding something like 3 to 4 times higher propensity to spend from that omni-channel shopper. So they're embracing it. I've seen the likes of John Lewis are embracing it, and certainly specialty fashion are embracing that. And just to sort of close with specialty fashion, it's probably the only website I've ever looked at where I've gone on, this is just their corporate website, which over on the right-hand side, they actually refer to omni-channel retailing as a core strategy on their website. Gets a high mention for them. They've certainly embraced it, and they're reaping the rewards now from their investment in that. So in terms of sort of details, just before we go to questions, I'll leave my details on the stand. If anybody wants a copy of the presentation, more than happy to let you have a copy. Just come and give me your business card at the end, or you can take one of my cards and email me. There's also the opportunity to find out more about customer experience management. There's a few flyers with a competition that you can grab from the front, or just pop onto our stand in a minute. And probably more pertinently, there's best practice papers, case study, and a video as well of specialty fashion talking in some more detail about what they've been doing on our website, and the links there.